Chapter 666. After a day of torment in Chuluiwe, he could finally return to his home and have a good rest. However, the Jianghu residence on the other side was not so peaceful. After being detained for a day, Chide was escorted to Jiang Yuqing's study at night. The cold wind was bone-chilling, and it seemed to freeze his bones. Even his heart was almost completely cold. The door was closed from behind. In front of him was Jiang Yuqing, who was sitting behind the table with a cold and dignified expression. The dim yellow light shone on his face, and it was cold and eerie. Chide shivered all over. For a moment, his entire body stiffened and he could not move. Bang! Sun Chi kicked him in the knee from behind. "Why aren't you kneeling when you see eldest young master?" Chide knelt on the ground with a plop in pain. The pain in his knee made his face pale. He finally reacted and hurriedly kowtowed. "Spare me, eldest young master. Spare me, eldest young master." Jiang Yuqing looked at him expressionlessly. "Tell me, what's going on with Xiamu?" Chide paused and felt bitter in his heart. "Eldest young master, I really don't know. Xiamu is introverted and very timid. He doesn't even go out often. I don't know why he did this." Although he also had a lot of resentment towards Jiang Yuqing in his heart, he would at most complain a little in private. He would never dare to do anything. They knew very well what kind of person Jiang Yuqing was. It wasn't like they hadn't seen his methods before. How could they dare to go against him? But Xiamu actually injured Jiang Yuqing. Even he was shocked for a long time when he heard that. Until now, he still couldn't understand why Xiamu did this. You have the best relationship with him. Don't you know what he wants to do? Chide wanted to cry but had no tears. "I really don't know. Eldest young master, please understand. Everything was fine when I came here with Xiamu today." Jiang Yuqing pondered for a moment. Xiamu must have attacked him on the spur of the moment. Otherwise, he wouldn't have used just one brush. However, when Xiamu attacked, he was extremely steady, accurate, and ruthless. Jiang Yuqing even suspected that Xiamu had long held a grudge against him, which was why he suddenly used so much strength. "Has he ever told you that he harbors hatred for me?" Chide pondered for a moment, his expression conflicted. Jiang Yuqing raised his tone slightly, with a hint of coercion. Chide hurriedly lowered his head and pressed his forehead against the ground. "I really didn't." He followed this young master to the southern border. His face was ruined and he became a mute. "Do you really not have any complaints?" Jiang Yuqing didn't believe it. He knew in his heart how these people viewed him, but he didn't mind. In any case, they couldn't do anything. But now, Xiamu had injured him. Of course, he would pursue the matter to the end. Chide had no choice but to say, "This? He has always been loyal to the eldest young master. He wouldn't do this to you." Jiang Yuqing gave Sun Chi a look. Sun Chi immediately stepped forward and slapped Chide hard. "Slap. Tell the truth. If you lie, I'll cut off your tongue." Chide lost 2 teeth and his mouth was full of blood. He opened his mouth, but something seemed to be stuck in his throat and he couldn't speak. Xiamu had saved his life. He couldn't. Jiang Yuqing narrowed his eyes. How could he not see through Chide's thoughts? Such stubbornness was obviously to protect Xiamu. He suddenly asked, "Since you don't admit it, then I won't pursue this matter. Let me ask you, Xiamu, why did his cultivation suddenly regress to the peak of the 4th stage?" Chide was suddenly stunned. He raised his head and looked at Jiang Yuqing in a daze. "Peak of the 4th stage? Impossible, he's still in the same realm as before?" Although his body was seriously injured after returning and he couldn't advance no matter how hard he cultivated, he definitely didn't return to the peak of the 4th stage. A white light suddenly flashed in Jiang Yuqing's mind. He immediately stood up and stared at Chide. "Is what you said true? Are you sure that he's not at the peak of the 4th stage?" Chide didn't know why he was like this and only nodded blankly. "Eldest young master, is there something wrong?" Jiang Yuqing's expression changed quickly. "So that's how it is. So that's how it is. That Xiamu was a fake." During this period of time, did you notice anything different about Xiamu? He asked anxiously. Chi thought for a long time and shook his head hesitantly. He's always been like that. Jiang Yuqing instantly thought of the appearance of that Xia Mu. He was thin and small, his face was full of scars, and he wore half an iron mask. Most importantly, he was mute. Such a person was extremely easy to disguise. Even if he silently changed into another person, who would be able to see the change when he stood there silently with his head lowered? Jiang Yuqing gradually clenched his fists. What he could confirm now was that the Xia Mu who injured him today wasn't the real Xia Mu. As for the real Xia Mu, he had probably been dealt with long ago. Unfortunately, he couldn't confirm when this person was changed, and he didn't know who would pretend to be Xia Mu and deliberately sneak into the Jiang residence. As long as that person removed his disguise and changed into his own appearance, who would know? Given the current situation, it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens to investigate this matter. Jiang Yuqing paced back and forth in the room in extreme frustration. As he walked, he kept looking at the brush on the table. Who could have such strength and movement skills? Suddenly, he stopped in his tracks. Peak of the 4th stage, wasn't Chu Luiyue the one? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 667. A burst of burning pain suddenly came from his lower abdomen. Jiang Yuqing frowned, and his face instantly turned pale. Sun Qi immediately stepped forward and asked nervously, "Eldest young master, what's wrong?" Jiang Yuqing waved his hand. "Nothing. Take him down first." "Yes." Qi was confused. He had already said what he needed to say. Why was the eldest young master still unwilling to let him go? He really didn't do anything to let the eldest young master down. Sun Qi walked to Qi's side and glanced at Jiang Yuqing hesitantly. "Eldest young master." Then, Jiang Yuqing gave him a look and was a little impatient. "Follow the plan." Sun Qi immediately agreed. A trace of uneasiness emerged in Qi's heart. Follow the plan? What plan? His intuition told him that he would bang. Sun Qi's hand directly chopped Qi until his 2 eyes rolled back and he fainted. Then he personally dragged Qi out. After the door was closed, Jiang Yuqing was the only one left in the room. He took a deep breath and walked towards the bed behind the screen. After taking off his clothes, he carefully examined the wound on his lower abdomen. The burning pain just now only appeared for a moment and then dissipated. A brush was stabbed straight in, causing a small wound. Plus, Feng Shunyuan had already treated it for him, so it was already getting better. But that strange burning pain really made Jiang Yuqing worried. He sat cross-legged, circulated his force, and carefully checked the situation in his body, but didn't find any problems. After thinking about it, he asked someone to invite Feng Shunyuan over. After hearing his description, Feng Shunyuan was also full of surprise. But after repeatedly checking Jiang Yuqing's pulse 3 times, he still didn't find anything wrong. This eldest young master doesn't seem to have any other problems apart from these injuries. "What's the pain you mentioned?" Jiang Yuqing frowned. "It's like a fire, but it's fleeting. I checked myself and there's no problem, but this pain is really strange." He was cautious and suspicious by nature, not to mention that this matter involved his body. It was impossible for him not to care. Feng Shunyuan looked ashamed. "It's probably because my medical skills aren't good enough. Why don't I find someone else to take a look at eldest young master?" "No." Jiang Yuqing shook his head. Feng Shunyuan was a little puzzled. "But Zhuo Mingxi and the other lords are still reliable, and they probably won't reveal your body's condition." Those 3 heavenly doctors were Shangguan Wan and Jiang Yuqing's confidants. If not, they wouldn't have been specially chosen to take care of the emperor. Jiang Yuqing didn't say anything, but his cold and solemn expression made Feng Shunyuan's heart race. Could it be that eldest young master no longer trusted those people? Now is a critical time. I can't reveal anything about my body's condition. Jiang Yuqing had already experienced countless troublesome things in this day, but he didn't expect that they still wouldn't stop in the middle of the night. The aura around him was cold and sinister. What's the use of punishing her now? The key is to find that person. This time, did you see what that person looked like? Jianghu shook her head with tears in her eyes. Uncle Fu said, "Eldest young master, since that person was able to quietly take forth miss away from this old servant, his strength must be above this old servant's." Jiang Yuqing's heart trembled slightly. Although Uncle Fu wasn't a top expert, he wasn't weak either. It would be easy for the other party to send a powerhouse of this level to take Jiang Yuji's life. But the other party didn't do so. This was clearly to torture Jiang Yuji. Thinking of this, he glanced at her and saw that Jiang Yuji looked aggrieved and there was deep fear in her eyes. Big brother. I won't go out in the future. Can you quickly find that person? Last time, Jiang Yuji was still extremely arrogant. Now that she had suffered, she instantly became obedient. Jiang Yuqing's heart ached and he was angry. In the end, he could only say, "Go back and recuperate first. Don't go out during this period of time. I will send someone to investigate this matter." Jiang Yuji didn't have any objections and agreed miserably. Jiang Yuqing didn't sleep well that night. He had nightmares. That faintly discernible burning sensation always reminded him of a big fire. And this time, in his sleep, he became the person in the fire. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. It was actually quite normal for someone to assassinate him now. However, on the same day, another important piece of news came from the palace. In the imperial court, the third princess discussed with all the officials and decided to marry Jiang Yuqing on the 6th of June. Calculating the time, it was about 3 months later. It was like a clap of thunder. Everyone knew that the day of the wedding was the day when third Princess Shangguan ascended the throne. Chu Estate. In the room, Chu Luwe sat cross-legged, holding his breath and concentrating. The origin power of heaven and earth in the surroundings flowed into her body endlessly, passing through her limbs and bones before finally converging into the water droplet in her dantian. The 4 lines were bright and clear on the surface of the water droplet. Chu Luwe faintly felt as if he had touched an invisible barrier. She knew very well that it was the threshold of a rank 5 warrior. After the battle at the Square Stream sect meeting, the power in her body had become much more solid. Thinking about it, it was time to choose to break through now. Chu Luwe placed both hands on her knees and sped up the flow of origin power in her body. Above her head, an energy vortex quickly appeared. Waves of origin power quickly flowed in. The aura and pressure around her also began to rise at a speed visible to the naked eye. Outside the door, Rong Xiu walked along the corridor. Before he reached, he seemed to have sensed something and looked at the room. A faint ripple could be felt coming from it. His eyes moved slightly and he stood still on the spot. With a wave of his sleeve, a silver barrier quickly enveloped the entire room. "Master." When Yan Qing arrived, he had just shouted when he saw his master standing in the corridor with his hands behind his back, as if waiting for something. He immediately shut up tactfully and looked at the room where Chu Luwe was. When he saw the silver barrier, he thought for a moment and understood. Master is protecting Miss Luyu? Could it be that Miss Luyu is going to break through again? Yan Qing sighed in his heart. Miss Luyu's breakthrough speed was too fast. In less than a year, she went from a good-for-nothing to the peak of rank 4 and was about to break through to rank 5. Even if it was a cultivator with the same Daijing Yuan Meridian talent, it would be very difficult to achieve this step. Moreover, she was a triple cultivator. Apart from martial artist cultivation, the ranks of Xian Master and Celestial Physician were also constantly increasing. Even if she was placed in their place, she would not lose to others. Sensing Yan Qing's arrival, Rong Xiu turned his head and looked over. What's the matter? Yan Qing stepped forward and bowed. Master, 36 revered Elder Ming is back. He's waiting in the front hall. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows. So fast. At that time, 36 revered Elder Ming had come to Xiling with him. However, after arriving, he asked 36 revered Elder Ming to help investigate a matter. 36 revered Elder Ming was unwilling at first. He wanted to see Chu Luiwei before leaving. In the end, he was persuaded by Rong Xiu. According to Rong Xiu's previous estimation, 36 revered Elder Ming would only return in half a month. He didn't expect it to be so fast. He turned around and glanced at the silver barrier, but he didn't move. Yan Qing hesitated for a moment and asked, "Master, aren't you going now?" Rong Xiu was calm. "Wait a little longer." "Wait for what?" Of course, he was waiting for Chu Luiyue to break through. Yan Qing was very puzzled. It was naturally a good thing that Miss Lu Yu had broken through to rank 5. However, why did Master still want to guard her personally? At this level, there shouldn't be any problems. It should be over soon, however, he didn't dare to say this out loud. He could only say, "Then I'll go back and report to 36 revered elders first." Rong Xiu nodded. However, just as Yan Qing turned around and was about to leave, he saw a figure walking over from not far away. It was 36 revered Elder Ming. His footsteps seemed slow, but in the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of him silently. Yan Qing immediately bowed, but 36 revered Elder Ming waved his hand. "No need, no need. I'm here to see the little princess consort." As he spoke, he looked curiously at Chu Luiyue's room and asked in surprise, "Is she going to break through? Rong Xiu, didn't you say that she's still a rank 4 warrior? Why are you guarding her now?" For convenience, he disguised himself as an elder of Mingyue Tianshan this time. Therefore, he no longer addressed Rong Xiu as Your Highness, and called him by his name. Rong Xiu seemed to have expected that he couldn't wait to come, and a smile appeared on his face. "Naturally, it's because I need it." Buzz. A wave suddenly spread out from the room. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 669. The silver barrier was hit, and it rippled slightly. 36 respected Elder Ming was a little surprised. Is she about to break through to become a rank 5 martial artist? Rong Xiu nodded. 36 respected Elder Ming looked at the surging heaven and earth force and was even more surprised. This movement doesn't seem like it. Rank 5 martial artist, when a cultivator broke through this threshold, it wouldn't cause too much of a commotion. Not to mention them, even the normal cultivators in Shilling City wouldn't pay much attention to it and were all used to it. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows slightly. If her breakthrough was really the same as normal people, why would he do this? 36 respected Elder Ming's heart skipped a beat when he saw Rong Xiu's expression. Buzz. Another movement came. This time, it was even more obvious than the previous one. The heaven and earth force started to surge in at an even faster speed. 36 respected Elder Ming watched for a while and became interested. It seemed like this girl was unusual. He also wanted to see how capable the woman, who could make Rong Xiu so worried about her, was. In the room, Chu Luiyue's shoulders drooped slightly. She placed her hands on her knees with her palms facing up. The energy vortex above her head became bigger and bigger, and its spinning speed became faster and faster. Vaguely, Chu Luiyue could even hear the sound of surging tides. That was the sound of abundant heaven and earth force surging into her body. Waves of vigorous heaven and earth force swam in her body and kept washing her yuan meridian before finally pouring into the water droplet. However, even with so much heaven and earth force surging in, the water droplet didn't move for a long time. The invisible barrier was within reach, but when Chu Luiyue tried to break through, she realized that the energy required to take this step was much greater than expected. Whoosh, whoosh, heaven and earth force surged inside and outside her body, and even her eardrums seemed to be gurgling. Suddenly, a cluster of bright red flames emerged from her left palm. That flame danced excitedly like a spirit and then started to attract even more heaven and earth force toward her. Chu Luiyue's body was like a bottomless pit, crazily devouring the energy of heaven and earth. The scarlet flames refined the energy, and the origin power carried a scorching aura as it poured into his dantian. Half of Chu Luiyue's body began to heat up. Shortly after, a strand of origin power floated out from the water droplet. Like smoke, it slowly spread to her internal organs. Chu Luiyue's eyebrows twitched slightly. A colorless flame quickly appeared on his right hand. It was the karmic fire in the heavenly square cauldron. At this moment, It was burning quietly and had also begun to compete for the origin power of heaven and earth. He quickly refined it and poured it into Chu Liyue's body. Unlike the origin power that had been tempered by the scarlet flames earlier, the origin power that surged out of the transparent karmic fire actually carried a trace of coldness. Like a stream of icy cold snow, it gradually spread, causing the other half of her body to become cold. However, this cold qi was very different from the cold qi inside Chang Wanzhou's body. Because this kind of cold qi was extremely pure and unadulterated. Very quickly, a strand of origin power with coldness also surged out of the water droplet and similarly spread to her internal organs. Chu Liyue sat there quietly, but there were two extremely different types of energy mixing together in her body. Ice and fire had always been on opposite sides, but Chu Liyue's body was like a huge and incomparably magical container that fused all of these together. Half of her body was burning. Half of her body was icy cold. Within Chu Liyue's body, the two types of burning and chilling feelings were constantly intertwined. And during this process, the origin power consumed by the devouring was extremely terrifying. Outside the door, 36 respected Elder Ming and Yen Qing looked at the energy vortex in the courtyard with a shocked expression. That was formed because Chu Liyue had absorbed too much of the origin power of heaven and earth. Until now, the energy that Chu Liyue had absorbed was already sufficient for 2 peak rank 4 to break through to rank 5. However, she had no intention of stopping. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Ripples of energy spread out. The silver enchantment that Rong Xiu had set up was constantly rippling. If it wasn't for his enchantment, the courtyard would have been swept away by the energy contained in the ripples. 36 respected Elder Ming glanced at Rong Xiu faintly. You guessed it long ago? Rong Xiu smiled but didn't say a word. The commotion caused by this girl breaking through to a rank 5 warrior is really not small. If this continues, she will almost be comparable to a rank 6 warrior. There were a total of 9 ranks for a cultivator, and rank 3 was a threshold. For a cultivator to break through the barrier of rank 3, 6, and 9 was extremely important to their entire cultivation career. Chu Liyue, this boom. A roar suddenly came from the room. 36 respected Elder Ming immediately looked over and widened his eyes in shock. She is going to connect the 5 internal organs? The 5 internal organs referred to the heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys. The so-called connecting the 5 internal organs meant that after a cultivator reached a certain level, they could use the dantian as the center to connect the 5 internal organs and use the origin power of heaven and earth to connect them to the dantian. In this way, the 5 internal organs that were connected to the dantian were equivalent to a pill of origin in another sense. The more the 5 internal organs were connected, the faster the cultivator's cultivation speed would increase. But in fact, connecting the 5 internal organs had extremely high requirements for the cultivator. Ordinary cultivators would only attempt this when they were breaking through to a rank 6 warrior. They might not succeed. According to the difference in talent and physique, the number of the 5 internal organs was also different. Some could connect a few at once, while some could only connect one. Many cultivators didn't connect all the internal organs even after becoming a rank 7 warrior. But Chu Liyue was just about to break through to a rank 5 warrior, so how could she connect the 5 internal organs? Digression. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 670. Generally speaking, the better one's talent, the earlier one could unlock the 5 treasures, and the higher the chance of success on the first try. But other than Rong Xiu, 36 respected Elder Ming had never seen anyone try this when they broke through to become a stage 5 warrior. This could only prove that Chu Liyue's ability far exceeded her realm. Rong Xiu looked back and looked at the room that was constantly emitting waves. His gaze was deep. Actually, he didn't expect it at first, but when he brought her back yesterday, he was surprised to find the vigorous force in her body. Once she started to break through, it was very likely to cause a huge commotion. The result was indeed so. 36 respected Elder Ming was shocked and didn't say anything for a while. and that silver barrier was shaking even more violently. Chu Luiwei had actually expected this scene before she broke through. But when she sensed that the two forces of ice and fire were starting to spread toward her internal organs, she was still shocked. In her previous life, she had the Tianjing Yuan Meridian, and indeed, she had already started to unlock the 5 treasures when she broke through to rank 5. But now, her body had the Daijing Yuan Meridian, and logically speaking, she should be like other cultivators, starting from the time of rank 6. A thought flashed across Chu Luiwei's mind quickly. Perhaps this was related to the water droplet in her body? But this thought only flashed past her mind. She was only stunned for a moment before she quickly gathered her focus and continued to devour the heaven and earth force around her. Chu Luiwei closed her eyes and looked inside. In her dantian, the water droplet was spinning slowly. Streams of origin power gushed out from within and spread to his internal organs in an attempt to connect with them. The surroundings were like endless darkness, and she didn't know when she would be able to find the exit. But Chu Luiwei was extremely patient, and she tried bit by bit. After an unknown period of time, a starlight suddenly appeared in the water droplet. Almost at the same time, a subtle feeling of connection was produced. Her heart was unlocked. Thump thump, thump thump. Her heart was beating vigorously, and even the starlight in the water droplet started to shine. The speed of the force circulation in Chu Luiwei's body instantly increased by 2 times. The flames in her hands burned even more fiercely. TSK, she actually did it? Sensing that unusual fluctuation, 36 respected Elder Ming finally could not hold back and spoke out. As a revered elder, he was unquestionably a top-notch cultivator. He had seen tens of thousands of cultivation geniuses. On the surface, 36 respected Old Ming was all smiles, but in reality he was an extremely picky person. It was easy to imagine how high the standards of such a person were. At this moment, even he couldn't help but glance at Rong Xiu. No wonder. Brat, your eyesight is quite sharp. Didn't Chu Luiwei come from an ordinary family? Didn't they say that she was a good-for-nothing when it came to cultivation? What was going on now? As far as he knew, Rong Xiu had been eyeing the girl ever since she started cultivating. Back then, he had thought that since it was rare for Rong Xiu to fall in love with a girl, even if her background and talent were slightly inferior, it wouldn't matter. Who would have thought that after all this time, this brat had brought along a true genius? To think that he had thought so much before. It was simply a waste of emotions. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows, and his lips curled into a smile. Thank you for the compliment. Between his brows, there was a proud look that was not concealed at all. 36 respected Elder Ming, how shameless. Boom. A series of explosions could be heard. She's still continuing? 36 respected Elder Ming was shocked and hurriedly looked over. Could it be that she can still open the second treasury? In the room, Chu Luiwei's eyes were tightly shut. After the first success, the subsequent process became much simpler. Very quickly, the second starlight appeared in the water droplet. This time, it was the liver. After opening 2 treasures in succession, the force in Chu Luiwei's body was still surging crazily, and there was no sign of it stopping. Chu Luiwei made up her mind and decided to directly open all 5 treasures in one go. Her entire person seemed to have entered some kind of wonderful state, and she completely forgot about the flow of time in the outside world. She only continued to absorb the energy from the outside world, and then converted it into her own force. Again and again, she tried to continue opening the remaining 5 treasures. The water droplet rotated slowly, and the force that surged out also increased. Finally, there was a soft sound. Spleen. The third starlight flashed slowly. 36 respected Elder Ming's expression gradually became serious. Such talent was really hard to come by. Generally speaking, it was actually very difficult for a cultivator who tried to open the 5 treasures for the first time to succeed. There were really very few who could open all 3 treasures in one go. And this, to a certain extent, also foretold the cultivator's potential. If Chu Luiwei could still continue, boom. As if to confirm his thoughts, there was another boom in the room. A wave that contained powerful energy spread out in all directions. The barrier shook even more violently. This was already the fourth treasury. 36 respected Elder Ming, who originally didn't care about this matter, already had his entire heart in his mouth at this moment. Even Yanqing's face, which had always been as cold as ice, was now filled with deep shock. Only Rong Xiu had one hand behind his back, and his posture was calm and lazy. It was as if he had already predicted the result. After opening all 4 treasures, 4 starlights shone brightly in the water droplet in her dantian. At this moment, Chu Liyue's speed of absorbing the force had already reached 4 times the initial speed. Fortunately, her Yuan meridian was wide and tough enough. Otherwise, it would really be hard for her to withstand such a turbulent force. Waves of force washed through her body. Chu Liyue could clearly feel that the aura on her body was continuously strengthening. Although her eyes were closed, her 5 senses were obviously much sharper than before. Chu Liyue held her breath, and a flash of passion flashed across her heart. If she could open the last treasury, it would be extremely beneficial to her cultivation in the future. So, no matter what, she must succeed. The last treasury was undoubtedly the most crucial and also the most difficult checkpoint. Among 1,000 rank 6 martial artists, there might not even be one who could open all 5 treasures. The difficulty was imaginable. Chu Liyue tried again and again. If the first time didn't work, the second time. If the second time didn't work, the third time. After an unknown period of time, there was still no movement from the 5th treasury. The force in Chu Liyue's body was constantly depleting. But she still didn't stop, and she still tried her best every time. She was incomparably stubborn and tenacious. It's been so long, the 5th treasury shouldn't be able to open anymore. Looking at the sky, 36 respected Elder Ming muttered to himself. Actually, it's already very outstanding to be able to open the 4th treasury on the first try. It's fine if you really can't open the 5th treasury. Rong Xiu didn't move at all, as if he was still waiting. After a while, his eyes moved slightly. Boom. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 671. The last treasure was successfully unlocked. The 5th star finally appeared in the water droplet. Almost at the same time, Chu Liyue heard the sound of something shattering. Bang! That was the barrier of a rank 5 warrior finally breaking. As though the floodgates had been opened, a flood poured down. The wind howled and countless waves were swept up. Chu Liyue retracted her hands and the 2 balls of flames quickly returned to her body. A powerful aura spread out from Chu Liyue's body. The 5th pattern gradually appeared on the water droplet. Buzz! Chu Liyue suddenly opened her eyes. There seemed to be 2 balls of flames burning in her eyes. It was extremely bright and brilliant. A true rank 5 warrior. She stretched out her hand and drew a line of origin power. 5 stars were faintly discernible in her palm. Even that force was wrapped in an unusually powerful aura. This level of strength was more than a few times stronger than before. This was the strength of a rank 5 warrior who had unlocked all 5 treasures. Even someone as calm and collected as Chu Liyue couldn't help but feel agitated at this moment. She had never thought that not only could she be reborn as a human, but she could also cultivate to such a level again. Although there was no way to be compared to her previous self, Chu Liyue could clearly feel that as her strength increased, she was indeed getting closer to her previous self step by step. There would be a day when she would return to her peak. She would take back everything that belonged to her. When the fluctuations around her gradually dissipated, Chu Liyue took a deep breath and calmed herself down. She stood up and walked outside. The door opened and a few gazes looked over. Chu Liyue followed the gaze and looked over. The first to see was Rong Xiu. Standing behind him was Yanqing. Beside him was a green-robed old man with white hair who was looking at her with a smile. This is, Chu Liyue was puzzled. Rong Xiu waved his sleeves and the silver barrier disappeared silently. Only then did Chu Liyue realize that he seemed to have set up a barrier outside the room. Is he protecting me? Well, She had caused quite a commotion just now, and it would be troublesome if she attracted someone. She had been in the limelight in West Hill recently, and there were many pairs of eyes looking at her. Although she wasn't afraid, she knew that it was easier to dodge an open spear than an arrow in the dark. It was always better to be careful. Moreover, she had unlocked all 5 treasures as a rank 5 warrior. If this news were to spread, it would probably cause a bloodbath. Thinking of this, a smile appeared on her face. Just as she was about to walk forward, she saw that the old man had already taken a step forward. Little Wang. Little Lu Yu, right? Although the old man's face was full of wrinkles, his eyes were very clear and he looked hale and hearty. When he walked over, it seemed like he hadn't moved at all, but in the next moment, he was already right before Zhang Xian. Moreover, there was not the slightest bit of power. Chu Liuyue's heart tingled. This old man's strength was probably far beyond her expectations. At this moment, he was looking at Chu Liyue with a smile and a curious and eager face. Chu Liyue glanced at Rong Xiu and saw that he was smiling. It was obvious that he had a good relationship with this old man, so she smiled obediently and bowed. Lu Yu greets Senior. 36 respected Elder Ming looked at the little girl in front of him happily. Her face was porcelain white and her eyes were clean. There was a hint of nobility in her eyes. She was really likable. Not bad, not bad. Rong Xiu's taste was indeed good. He liked her the moment he saw her. You don't have to be so polite. This old man's title in Mingyue Tianshan is 36 Ming. You can call me 36 respected elder. So he was an elder from Mingyue Tianshan. Chu Liyue understood and immediately responded obediently. 36 respected elder came to West Hill this time because he has something important to do. He also came here to take a look. Rong Xiu walked over and explained. Chu Liyue nodded and said apologetically, 36 respected elder came from afar. 36th elder, you've come from afar. Please forgive me for not being able to receive you properly. No. This old man knows that you were cultivating just now. This old man has always been free to come and go. I don't care about these formalities. Besides, Rong Xiu is here. It's more important for you to break through. As he spoke, a trace of admiration appeared in his eyes. Little Lu Yu, your talent is really outstanding. It seemed like he already knew about what had happened just now. Chu Liyue's mind raced. It was hard not to know that an expert of this level was standing here. Moreover, Rong Xiu seemed to have a good relationship with this old man and should be very trusting. In that case, she had nothing to hide. Thank you for your praise, 36 respected elder. Actually, Lu Yu was just a little lucky. 36 respected elder Ming chuckled. There are people in this world who can't do this even if they use up their lifetime of luck. Little Lu Yu, you don't have to be humble. It's Rong Xiu's fortune to be able to find you. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows slightly. It seems like someone has suddenly changed sides? Chu Liyue's face turned slightly hot. This was the first time she had heard such words from an outsider. It felt really strange. 36 respected elder Ming no longer had Rong Xiu in his eyes. He only had Chu Liyue left. He had never married in his life and had no children. In the past, he had always treated Rong Xiu as his close relative. Not only did he teach him everything, but he also often gave advice to Rong Xiu. It could be said that without him, there wouldn't be Rong Xiu who sat firmly on the position of Holy Son today. But there was one thing. He had great expectations for Rong Xiu and was relatively strict. But when he saw Chu Liyue, his heart instantly melted. Such a cute and beautiful little girl, isn't she meant to be pampered? Little Lu Yu, you're now a rank 5 warrior and have opened your 5 treasures. It's time for you to build a good cultivation foundation and stabilize your advancement. I happen to have some Earth stage martial skills. Why don't you pick them? With that, 36 respected elder Ming shook his hand. Crash. Many jade boxes instantly fell out of the universe ring. Those jade boxes were all lustrous and translucent with a faint aura. It was obvious that the items inside were not ordinary. He coughed. Old man, things are a bit messy. You can put up with it and pick whatever you like. If you don't like it, I still have more. Chu Liyue's eyes were dazed for a moment. What does this mean? There's actually someone in this world who casually gives an Earth stage martial skill on their first meeting? However, seeing Chu Liyue's expression, 36 respected Elder Ming misunderstood and thought that she didn't like them. He pondered for a moment, pulled Chu Liyue's wrist and walked to the side. He lowered his voice and whispered, "Little Liu, if you don't like these, I actually have better things. However, those are all the sex inheritances. I'm afraid I can only give them to you after you and Rong Xiu get married." Chu Liyue's brows twitched violently. Does he mean, marry Rong Xiu and give her a heaven stage martial skill? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Hugging 2 heavy boxes in her arms, Chu Liyue silently thought to herself, so this is the feeling of hugging someone's thigh. Awesome. Oh, that's right. I heard from Rong Xiu that you, little Liu, are also a Xian master and celestial physician? Although this old man doesn't cultivate these two, I have collected quite a number of things. As 36 revered Elder Ming spoke, he poured out another pile of things and started picking. This is a level 8 Xian formation, this is for you. And this is for you too. This seems to be a prescription book. Back then this old man picked it up from a 9. Celestial physician, take it. Chu Liyue, who was still pretending to be calm at the beginning, finally felt her eyelids twitch violently. Isn't this too extravagant? 36 revered Elder Ming, these things of yours are really too valuable. However, Rong Xiu had already taken those things and placed them in her arms, not allowing her to reject. 36 revered Elder does indeed have quite a number of things that are idle. It's a waste to leave them with him. You're just making the best use of them by accepting them. Just take them, Rong Xiu said casually. As he spoke, he glanced at those things a few times, as if he was picking something. 36 revered Elder Ming, I remember that you have a yuan instrument that can teleport? That's good too. 36 revered Elder Ming searched again. After a while, he took out a palm-sized bronze disc and stuffed it into Chu Liyue's hands. Little Liu, you've just reached the standard of flying. This is the most suitable thing for you to use. Chu Liyue was dumbfounded. At the beginning, she tried to dissuade them, but after realizing that she couldn't stop these two people at all, she decisively gave up. How should she put it? This feeling of being thrown money at, it still felt good. 36 respected Elder Ming only stopped when Chu Liyue's entire body was about to be buried by these gifts after half a day of digging. He sized up Chu Liyue and shook his head regretfully. Sigh, I'm still lacking. Rong Xiu, you have to hurry up and get married. Otherwise, I can't give you a lot of things. Only when Chu Liyue became Rong Xiu's princess consort and reached this level of relationship could he continue. Rong Xiu's lips curled up slightly. I'll try my best. Chu Liyue was speechless. What does this mean? Why does it feel like something isn't right? After Rong Xiu finished speaking, he glanced at her and smiled. Keep these first. There's something that you probably don't know yet. Let's go inside and talk. Faced with such a forceful gift, Chu Liyue felt weak, pitiful, and helpless. She could only obediently put everything into her universe ring. Although the universe ring wasn't heavy, for some reason, Chu Liyue felt that if she shook it, she would hear countless money rustling. Come to think of it, although I didn't have anything when I was reborn, my luck seems to be ridiculously good. After packing up, the few of them finally entered the house. Chu Liyue personally brewed tea and received another round of praise from 36 revered Elder Ming. Little Liu, the tea you brewed is really good. Chu Liyue asked curiously. Do you like Jin Junmei? 36 revered Elder Ming was stunned for a moment before he immediately nodded. Rong Xiu sat at the side and watched this scene with a faint smile. Who didn't know that 36 revered Elder Ming only drank the ice and snow water that he carried with him? Especially at his level, he didn't care about these things. Although his acting skills were clumsy, he was sincere. Chu Liyue could roughly tell what was going on, and she found it funny and warm. She could tell that he really liked her and valued her. All of this was because he cared about Rong Xiu. Although she had never heard Rong Xiu mention it before, This old man was extremely important to Rong Xiu. There's a piece of news from the palace today. Rong Xiu took a sip of tea, and the fragrance instantly spread between his lips and teeth. The wedding between the third princess and young Master Jiang is set for the 6th of June. Chu Luiwei was stunned. This is... Shang Guanwan finally can't hold it in anymore. Is she going to ascend the throne? While she was in a daze, she realized that Rong Xiu was looking at her with a deep gaze. Chu Luiwei's heart skipped a beat. He seems to care a lot about my reaction. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 673. Actually, this matter was within her expectations. She was even a little surprised that the two of them had only decided on a date now. After all, the two of them had seemed so affectionate on the night of her death. She had thought that after her death, the two of them would be in power and could find a random reason to quickly get married. The two of them were irreconcilable enemies to her. Apart from that, sisters, fiancé and fiancé, those had long disappeared. Therefore, when she heard this news, she was not surprised at all. She even wanted to laugh. Two people whose bodies were severely injured, getting married at this time was simply asking for a snub. 6th of June. Calculating the time, there were only about 3 months left. Actually, this was not a long time. Apart from the wedding, there would definitely be a coronation ceremony. There were many things that would take a lot of time and energy to prepare. She just did not know why the two of them chose this time. Besides, even if they really got married, not to mention Jiang Yuqing, Shang Guanwan, how could a piece of trash with a damaged Yuan meridian pick up the Tianling scepter? It was fine if she used special methods on normal days, but on the day of the wedding, if she could not pick up the Tianling scepter in front of all the officials, the scene would definitely be beautiful. Thinking of this, Chu Luiwei was actually a little excited. TSK. Her bad habit of being a busybody was getting worse. Seeing Chu Luiwei's expression change and a sly smile in the end, Rong Xiu's eyes flashed and his smile deepened. He leaned back in his chair lazily. It seemed that some of his worries were indeed unnecessary. Pretty good. Chu Luiwei smiled. The emperor of the Tianling dynasty has been in a coma for 2 years and has been without a leader. Now it is time to solve this problem. However, whether it can really be solved is another matter. Since Shang Guanwan dared to do this, she must be prepared. As expected, she heard Rong Xiu continue. Also, there's one more thing. The third princess said that the emperor had been in a coma for a long time, and they needed to find several special herbs and the blood of divine beasts to wake him up. For this reason, she planned to personally head to the Great Desolate Swamp. Chu Luiwei was really surprised this time. Great Desolate Swamp? That place was at the western border of the Tianling dynasty. It was extremely remote and the environment was harsh. Why would Shang Guanwan want to go there in person? Back then, Mu Qinghe had joined the Black Cavalry and fought for many years in the Great Desolate Swamp. In the end, she had quelled the rebellion with great difficulty, which was why she had her current status. It was easy to imagine the dangers involved. Chu Luiwei had been to the Great Desolate Swamp in his previous life. Although it wasn't as mysterious and dangerous as the southern border, the Great Desolate Swamp was still a dangerous place compared to other places. Mystic Forest, Mirror Lake, Red Moon Desert. Back then, even she had been in danger several times. In Shang Guanwan's current situation, she still dared to take such a risk? Chu Luiwei thought for a moment. She brought the elders of the royal family with her? There's also 1,000 Black Cavalry. If the rumors aren't wrong, Mu Qinghe will be leading the team. Rong Xiu touched the teacup with a calm expression. In addition, she also plans to send 10 people from each of the 8 sects in the sect competition. She said, to provide opportunities for training. I heard that she will be selecting people from today onwards. We will set off 3 days later. Chu Luiwei almost laughed out loud. Provide opportunities for training? Shang Guanwan could actually say such things. How dangerous was the Great Desolate Swamp? More or less, there was no return. It was understandable that she brought the elders of the royal family and the Black Cavalry, But she still wanted to select people from the 4 major sects. She obviously had other motives. This is the royal family's matter. Did she say that the 4 major sects agreed so easily? This wasn't what she said. It was Purple Shao Sword Sect's sect master, Song Luan, who suggested it. It seems that some outstanding descendants of aristocratic families can go together if they want to. Now, the news has spread throughout the entire West Hill. How preposterous! Ridiculous! Chu Luiwei didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Why are they so passionate about the Great Desolate Swamp? Isn't that place very dangerous? It's dangerous, but there might be countless treasures hidden there. People die for wealth, and birds die for food. It has been like this since ancient times. Rong Xiu said lightly as if he didn't care. Chu Luiwei was speechless for a moment. All along, the Great Desolate Swamp had always been mysterious and dangerous in the eyes of the world, but it was also full of temptation. Because thousands of years ago, a shocking battle had once erupted there. It was rumored that in that battle, countless strong people killed each other, and they all fell in the end. The various treasures and inheritances that they left behind had undoubtedly become things that everyone yearned for even in their dreams. Therefore, for many years, there had always been an endless stream of people entering the Great Desolate Swamp. Back then, it was also because someone found an incredible item in the Great Desolate Swamp and gathered a group of extremely vicious people who wanted to start anew in the Great Desolate Swamp. In the end, they were forcefully suppressed. That group of people who rebelled had all disappeared, but it was precisely because of them that countless people realized how powerful the countless treasures hidden in the Great Desolate Swamp were. Therefore, from then on, even more people went there. In addition, there was an even more important point: divine beasts. There hadn't been a divine beast in the Tianling dynasty for hundreds of years. Even the former Shangguan Yu had only contracted a 9th-grade magical beast, not a divine beast. No one knew when it started, but there was suddenly a rumor that a divine beast appeared in the Great Desolate Swamp. In this world where the strong were respected, all these factors had a fatal attraction to all cultivators. Therefore, after Shangguan Wan mentioned this matter, many people immediately expressed their desire to go with her. Chu Luiwei thought for a moment. That's true. Rong Xiu looked at her. Then, do you plan to go? Chu Luiwei was a disciple of the Chongshu Pavilion, so she naturally had a chance. Moreover, she had just won 3 matches, turned the tide, and preserved the Chongshu Pavilion's position as one of the 4 major sections. She would definitely be the focus of attention. Chu Luiwei thought for a moment. Go. Why not? It wasn't like she hadn't been there before. Moreover, she also wanted to see what tricks Shangguan Wan had up her sleeves. Suddenly, she frowned slightly. But, if I go, what about you? Rong Xiu smiled faintly. I'm leaving tomorrow, 1 step earlier than you. Chu Luiwei was a little surprised, and a sense of loss suddenly surged in her heart. So soon? I've been resting here for a long time, and it's time to go. Chu Luiwei realized that Rong Xiu had indeed stayed in West Hill for more than a month. It was just that she had been busy with many things, and the two of them didn't have much chance to be alone. Chu Luiwei fell silent for a moment. Rong Xiu glanced at Yan Qing indifferently. Yan Qing immediately understood what he meant. Master, I suddenly remembered that there are still some things I haven't done, so I'll take my leave first. Rong Xiu nodded slightly. Yan Qing slipped away. Rong Xiu looked at 36 respected Elder Ming again. However, 36 respected Elder Ming was looking at Chu Luiwei, and he asked with a worried and eager expression. The little Lu Yu, the place you mentioned is so dangerous. Do you want me to go with you? Digression. At about 12:30 p.m., mobile phone users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 674. Rong Xiu, 36 respected Elder Ming, you seem to have said something wrong? This is your first time meeting you. Is it appropriate for you to speak like this? As if Rong Xiu's gaze was too cold and resentful, the slow-witted 36 respected Elder Ming finally realized something and quickly turned his head to look at him. Hey, look, Rong Xiu is also very worried. I feel more at ease accompanying you. Rong Xiu. He suddenly rejoiced that he didn't let 36 respected elder Ming meet Chu Luiyue in the past month. Otherwise, he wouldn't have had a good time during this period of time. Chu Luiyue smiled helplessly. 36 respected elder Ming, I'm afraid this won't work. Shangguan had caused quite a commotion this time, and it was obvious that she was very strict in selecting people. Each of the 8 sects would send out 10 people. Those who didn't know the inside story would probably think that this was an excellent opportunity and would fight until their heads bled. With such strict control over these sects, people like 36 respected elder Ming would definitely not be allowed to go together. Hearing this, 36 respected elder Ming's face was filled with disappointment. He originally wanted to follow and protect little Lu Yu, but don't worry, I will be very careful and pay attention to safety. Chu Luiyue said again. Sigh, all right. 36 respected elder Ming let out a long sigh and began to take things out from his universe ring. If that's the case, then I can't help you with anything else. I can only give you some things to protect yourself. Here, this and this, and this. Take them all. As he spoke, he handed over another pile of things. Chu Luiyue, it was really hard to guess how many treasures there were in the big boss's universe ring. I mustn't disappoint 36 respected elder Ming's kind intentions. Rong Xiu raised his finger and moved all those things to Chu Luiyue's feet. Then, he took out another pile and similarly piled them in front of Chu Luiyue. I'm giving these to you. Chu Luiyue. Why did he inexplicably smell a faint murderous aura? Chu Luiyue felt really embarrassed and tried to stop him again and again. Hence, he successfully kept all these things into his universe ring. The 3 of them were happy. Chu Luiyue was busy receiving gifts, but he didn't know that Xiling City was already in an uproar because of these 2 matters. The 3rd princess and young Master Jiang's wedding. To His Majesty, to His Majesties, His Majesties, to the disciples of the major sects were all extremely excited. That was the great desolate swamp. Although there were countless treasures. If he could find some kind of treasure or even obtain the inheritance of a certain expert, that would be a great opportunity. All the cultivators in the world wished to become stronger. Therefore, even if they knew that the great desolate swamp was dangerous, it still couldn't stop them from wanting to go. For this reason, the major sects had already begun to consider candidates. Mountain. I'm not going. Jian Fengqi crossed his legs and waved his bone fan. He looked lazy and indifferent. That's a barren land. Whoever wants to go can go. Jian Shai looked at him disapprovingly. What barren land? That's a place where divine beasts have appeared. Let's not talk about whether the rumor is true or not. Even if it's true, do you think I'll have a chance to get that divine beast? Jian Fengqi sneered. If only divine beasts were so easy to tame. Jian Shai also knew that what he said made sense, so he didn't argue with him. Even if you can't find a divine beast, it's good to go and experience it. You grew up in Xiling and almost never went outside. Now that this is a rare opportunity, you can go out and see. Moreover, the 3rd princess is going to look for herbs for His Majesty. You're not interested in divine beasts, but there should be herbs, right? Jian Fengqi glanced at his father. Father, I'm fine in Xiling. Why do you insist on me going out? Even if I didn't experience those things, aren't I still fine now? I'm a celestial physician, and you're also a celestial physician. Why are you still forcing me to fight with a group of martial artists and Shen masters? Jian Shai really didn't know what to do with this son of his. He only cared about himself all day long and wanted the best for everything. He wasn't willing to suffer at all. Jian Fengqi glanced at him and continued. Besides, Mu Qinghe used to rise from that place. Is there anyone who knows De Huang's swamp better than him? It's enough for him to go on this trip. There are so many other people going, but they're just joining in the fun. However, he didn't like it. Shangguan was there, and he was really afraid that she would ruin his mood. Besides, Shangguan's words were just used to scare people. Only she knew what she really wanted to do. He might as well stay in Xiling and do what he should do. Seeing that he really couldn't persuade him, Jian Shai could only give up. Master, can I go? Mu Hongyu suddenly asked. Jian Shai was stunned and immediately nodded. Of course. Although there were only 10 places, Mu Hongyu had the incorporeal body. In addition, she had improved rapidly during this period. Of course, she could go if she wanted to. Mu Hongyu's eyes lit up. That's great. Thank you, Master. That place sounds very interesting. And if I'm not wrong, Luyu will definitely go too. Jian Fengqi frowned slightly and was about to stop her, but he swallowed his words when he saw Mu Hongyu's excited expression. Jian Shai shook his head at Jian Fengqi. Since you don't want to go, then it's up to you. Many disciples on the mountain want to go. Jian Fengqi was unmoved. He stood up, stretched, and walked out leisurely. When he passed by Mu Hongyu, he knocked Mu Hongyu's head with his bone fan and whispered, "You really don't know the difference between life and death." Mu Hongyu blinked and wrinkled her nose. Who was reckless? Just as she was about to retort, Jian Fengqi had already walked away. Imperial Palace, Huayang Hall. Sheng Guanwan sat there, thinking about something. Chani was packing her things. They would set off for the Dahuang swamp in 3 days. This time, it would probably take more than a month. Therefore, she had to bring a lot of things. The Dahuang swamp was a dangerous place. If it was in the past, Sheng Guanwan would still have the courage to go. But now, her body, she felt more or less uneasy. Fortunately, she had brought a lot of people this time. Your Highness, Your Highness? Chan Yi called out to her twice before Sheng Guanwan came back to her senses. What's wrong? Chan Yi looked at her expression and asked hesitantly. Is the third princess worried about something? With Vice Admiral Mu leading the team this time, there shouldn't be a problem. Him? Sheng Guanwan scoffed. He won't listen to me. Although she knew that Mu Qinghe was Jiang Yuqing's subordinate, perhaps because he had been by Sheng Guanyu's side for so many years, she couldn't trust him. If it weren't for the fact that they were going to the Dahuang swamp and Mu Qinghe was the most suitable, she wouldn't have brought him along. Your Highness, you're worrying too much. Isn't young Master Jiang accompanying us? If you're really worried, why don't you bring that thing along? Sheng Guanwan turned around. What? Chan Yi bowed and whispered, have you forgotten that that person left behind a set of armor? Digression, mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 675. Are you talking about the pure gold armor? Sheng Guanwan furrowed her eyebrows. That item is not bad, but it has always been in Zhaoyu Hall. Everyone in the Tianling dynasty knows that it belongs to Sheng Guanyu. If I take it out, that person has already passed away. It's a waste for the holy item to be left in the pavilion. If it can be used by Your Highness and protect Your Highness, it will be the best use. Chani didn't seem to mind. She advised, you are already above everyone, and you will be getting married in a few months' time. No one is more suitable than you to be the new owner of this pure gold armor. Sheng Guanwan was moved by her words. The origin of this pure gold saint armor had quite a long history. Back then, when Sheng Guanyu had just become of marriageable age, she had led the Black Cavalry to patrol the territory. Along the way, she had accidentally entered the ruins of an ancient battlefield and obtained the pure gold armor. She had only publicly worn it once, and that was during the final battle in Dahuang Swamp. It was rumored that she had worn the pure gold armor and fought against 3 rank 8 martial artists alone. She had even killed all of them in the end. From then on, the pure gold armor had become famous. Sheng Guanyu was the heavenly princess and had seen many good items. However, this pure gold armor was definitely one of the top 3 yuan tools that she had. It was obvious how powerful it was. Sheng Guanwan had naturally been moved by this item. She had even thought of taking the pure gold armor for herself after dealing with Sheng Guanyu. However, her yuan meridian had been burned and hadn't recovered. Thus, she had thrown this matter to the back of her mind. Now that Chani mentioned it, she suddenly recalled it. What you said makes sense. Sheng Guanwan narrowed her eyes and thought about it. Let's go now. Zhaoyu Hall. This used to be the most honorable place in the entire palace, other than the Universal Palace where the current emperor lived. This was because this used to be the residence of the heavenly princess. The bustling of the past had all disappeared. The current Jianghu Hall had become very lonely and cold. Other than the palace guards who were sent to guard the palace, almost no one would come here. Because the Empress concubine died from qi deviation during cultivation, it wasn't very pleasant to hear. In addition, the one in power now was the third princess, so people rarely talked about the past. In this palace, it was true that each new emperor brought in his own ministers. In the eyes of the world, the third princess and the Empress concubine were extremely close and had a very good relationship. However, the palace servants who had been in the palace for a long time all had a keen mind. They more or less understood the subtleties involved. Therefore, when Shangguan arrived, the palace servants of Jianghu Hall were very shocked. Long live the third princess! Shangguan waved her hand casually and stepped into the courtyard, heading straight for the sleeping quarters. I'm just looking around. Do whatever you need to do. After everyone agreed in unison, they waited for Shangguan to enter the bedchamber. Then, they exchanged glances and slowly dispersed. Ever since Her Highness the Empress concubine left, the third princess came a few times. She always came with red eyes and left with red eyes. He didn't come much this year. Today's visit was really inexplicable. But no matter what, they still had to serve her carefully. Shangguan walked into the bedchamber. This room clearly hadn't been visited by anyone for a long time. The air was filled with a faint smell of dust that had been sealed for a long time. When the sunlight shone in, one could see the dust dancing in the air. Shangguan frowned and used a handkerchief to cover her mouth and nose. She was angry and amused at the same time. Who would have thought that the once glorious Jianghu Hall would fall to such a state one day? If it was a normal day, she would definitely immediately go out and admonish her to show her deep sisterly love. But today, she really wasn't in the mood and couldn't be bothered to do it. She walked to the bedside and gently rubbed the edge of the bed. After touching a protrusion, she pressed with her finger and the sandalwood cabinet diagonally opposite quietly moved aside. A secret compartment appeared in front of her. Shangguan walked over and knocked on it a few times. The secret compartment opened. A pure golden armor was placed in the middle of it. Even in this dark space, this pure gold armor still emitted a faint glow that couldn't be ignored. From top to bottom, it emitted an indescribable noble and lofty aura. At a glance, one could almost feel the surging blood qi on the armor. This wasn't the first time Shangguan saw this pure gold armor. But every time she saw it, her heart would be shocked. It was a true sacred object passed down from the ancient times. It was an incomparable existence that could be called a divine artifact. Shangguan was excited and couldn't help but reach out her hand to touch it slowly. It was cold and hard to the touch, but it emitted a powerful pressure. If she really wore it, what would it look like? Shangguan took a deep breath and carefully took off the pure gold armor. She held it in her arms and felt it against her face for a while. This was a powerful aura. This armor recognized its owner. Unfortunately, her yuan meridian was damaged and she could only look at it. When her body recovers, all of these would be hers. Shangguan carefully put the pure gold armor into her universe ring. Then, she restored everything to its original state before leaving. Chani was waiting at the door. As Shangguan walked out, she said indifferently, "Long Tianyu hasn't been cleaned up. Eldest sister's palace hasn't been cleaned for a long time. The palace servants of Jianghu Hall have neglected their duties and have all been chased out of the palace." Chani bowed. "Yes. Jiang residence. Eldest young master, you can't go with the third princess this time. If this continues, I'm afraid your body will." Feng Shanyuan came to the study again and tried his best to dissuade him. Jiang Yuqing sat in the chair expressionlessly. "You don't have to say this anymore. I must go this time." He wasn't going because of anything else, but because he was worried about Shangguan. Shangguan wanted to recover her yuan meridian as soon as possible, and he agreed. However, he didn't expect her to do this the moment she made a move. Not only did she bring the royal family's elders and 1,000 black cavalry, but the other sects also sent 10 disciples each. What was going on? Others didn't know, but he knew best. Shangguan was being too hasty. Feng Shangyuan frowned. But if you and the third princess go to Dehuang Swamp, what will happen to West Hill? Leave it to the subordinates to deal with. Now that most of the problems have been resolved, nothing will happen in a short month. Jiang Yuqing didn't think much of it. For the past 2 years, he had been upholding the principle of those who followed him would prosper and those who opposed him would die. He killed those who should be killed and captured those who should be captured. He had already dealt with those who posed a threat to him. He wasn't worried about what the remaining shrimp soldiers and crab generals would do. But there's still His Majesty. It's precisely because I want to find out the problem that I want to leave West Hill. Jiang Yuqing said meaningfully. Feng Shangyuan didn't say anything else. Dudu. Eldest young master, Vice Admiral Mu requests an audience. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 676. Jiang Yuqing glanced at Feng Shangyuan, and the latter immediately took his leave. Then, Mu Qinghe walked in. Jiang Yuqing leaned back in his chair. Tell me, what's the matter? Mu Qinghe cupped his fists. Young master, I've been secretly investigating the 100 Herbs building recently, but they're very guarded, so it's difficult to find anything. However, I accidentally learned that Yu Ling is in charge of the 100 Herbs building on the surface, but in fact, there's a first master behind him. That's the real master of the 100 Herbs building. First master? Jiang Yuqing frowned. Who is this person? He only knew that there must be someone behind the 100 Herbs building, but he didn't know who it was. Moreover, because the 100 Herbs building had been doing business quietly in the past and did not involve his interests, he did not seriously send people to investigate. Mu Qinghe shook his head. This person is very mysterious, and there's no clue. I heard that this first master has a wife, and he loves her very much. But there's nothing else. First master, wife, these were all hearsay. When he really wanted to investigate, Mu Qinghe found that the other party was more powerful than he had imagined, and everything was done flawlessly. This made him even more helpless. If Chu Luiyue really has a backer in the 100 Herbs building, it's very likely to be this person. Otherwise, there's really no way to explain what happened recently. Chu Luiyue comes from an ordinary family and has never even been to West Hill. How could she know such a person? Jiang Yuqing was a little skeptical. Mu Qinghe lowered his head slightly. It said that the last time Chu Luiyue went to the 100 Herbs building, Yu Ling was very polite to her and even entertained her personally. There are probably less than 5 people in West Hill who have such treatment. Jiang Yuqing's expression changed slightly. In that case, it's possible. Can't you find out anything about the so-called first master? For example, is he from West Hill? Or perhaps it's age? Mu Qinghe shook her head, then said with some hesitation, that's right. Eldest young master, we've been secretly investigating them, but we've already been discovered. And they even gave me a warning. Jiang Yuqing's eyes suddenly turned sharp. What? Mu Qinghe opened her palm. There was a neat bloody wound on it, as if it was going to be cut in half from the middle. The other party's meaning was very clear. Don't stretch your hands too far. They fought with you? Jiang Yuqing asked coldly. It's a masked man. His strength is not inferior to mine. In fact, what Mu Qinghe wanted to say was that the other party's strength was most likely higher than his. Otherwise, it would not have been so easy to leave such a wound on his palm. Jiang Yuqing was silent for a long time, as if he was holding a breath in his chest. In these 2 years, he had never seen such an arrogant person. However, he didn't even know who this person was. Whether it was Jiang Yuji or Mu Qinghe, the other party had made it clear that they were unyielding. According to Jiang Yuqing's personality, he would never allow others to bully him. Furthermore, this was West Hill. This was his territory. However, at this time, it was not appropriate to cause more trouble. He stared at the wound on Mu Qinghe's palm, rubbed his brows, and let out a long breath. Forget it, this matter ends here. We'll be going to Dehuang Swamp in a few days. Let's settle these things first. Mu Qinghe had already expected this result and nodded without surprise. Yes. Jiang Yuqing had been troubled by a bunch of trivial matters recently. He couldn't even take care of himself, so how could he care about these things? He could only wait until he returned. If there's nothing else, eldest young master, then I'll take my leave first. Jiang Yuqing waved his hand. Mu Qinghe retreated. However, she had just taken 2 steps when she was stopped by Jiang Yuqing. By the way, that day, were you the one who called the carriage for Rongxiu? Mu Qinghe was a little surprised that Jiang Yuqing actually knew about Rongxiu, but she still nodded. Yes. Jiang Yuqing's expression was a little cold, as if he was thinking about something. After a moment he asked again. That Rongxiu, what kind of person is he? Mu Qinghe was even more shocked. Why was Jiang Yuqing suddenly curious about Rongxiu? There were so many things to deal with right now, but he was actually wasting time and energy on such an unrelated person. Mu Qinghe suppressed the doubts in her heart and briefly told him about Rongxiu's situation. He didn't know much about Rongxiu, so he finished with a few words. As Jiang Yuqing spoke, he looked at Jiang Yuqing's expression. That's about it. Does eldest young master suspect that there's something wrong with him? Jiang Yuqing's lips moved, but in the end he didn't say anything. He just shook his head and let Mu Qinghe leave. After Mu Qinghe left and closed the door, Jiang Yuqing closed his eyes in annoyance. How could he think about these things at this time? On the one hand, the person who wanted to assassinate him hadn't been found yet. On the other hand, who was the first master behind 100 Herbs building? He didn't know whether it would be good or bad for him. Most importantly, he was about to go to Dahuang Swamp. He had to adjust his physical condition as soon as possible and prevent anything from happening to Shangguan. He really shouldn't spend time and energy asking these questions. But, for some reason, the scene of that day kept appearing in his mind from time to time. The heavy snow was swirling, and the world was crystal white. In the warm and spacious horse carriage, a man and woman were leaning against each other. She leaned tightly against that man's embrace, and her hair was messy. Her cheeks were flushed, and there seemed to be ripples in her eyes, which were mesmerizing. She was still wrapped in his black cloak. She was like a treasure being held in his hands. Her smile was so pure and clean, and there was a hint of unconcealable sweetness amidst her shyness. Jiang Yuqing closed his eyes and looked tired. However, in his mind, another scene flashed past. It was a scorching summer day. Thousand View Garden, by the lake outside the piano room. A woman also revealed such a smile. It was bright and dazzling, shy and honest. She said to him, Yuqing, I have someone I like. Let's forget about the marriage agreement. Digression. Tomorrow at 12 a.m. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from AI Network. Chapter 677. The next morning, Rongxiu left with Yan Qing, Yuemo, 36 respected Elder Ming and the others. Although Chu Luiwei was reluctant to part with them, he had no choice but to do so. He secretly hoped that he could settle the matters here as soon as possible. The snow on the road had basically been cleared. After sending them off, Chu Luiwei returned to the Chongshu Pavilion. Yuqi Song and Elder Xia Yi were discussing the matter of sending people to Dahuang Swamp. Unlike the other sects, the people of Chongshu Pavilion, from top to bottom, were not interested in this matter. On the one hand, the Chongshu Pavilion had experienced a series of setbacks in the past 2 years, and these people had barely survived. They would rather cultivate in a down-to-earth manner than risk their lives for an uncertain opportunity. On the other hand, there were less than 100 people left in the entire Chongshu Pavilion. It was really not a wise choice to send so many people to take the risk. What if something happened again? Whether it was Yuqi Song, Elder Xia Yi, or the disciples in the sect, they were all very conservative about this trip. Moreover, they were going with the third princess and the other sections. No one knew what would happen during this trip. This trip is dangerous and it might not be beneficial for us. I think we shouldn't go, right? Elder Xia Yi asked tentatively. Anyway, this isn't a mandatory requirement. The other sects might be overjoyed that we have 10 vacancies. Yuqi Song stroked his beard. Although you're right, will inevitably be criticized if the other sects go except for the Chongshu Pavilion. We've just secured our position as one of the 4 major sections. It's really inappropriate if we don't go this time. On the surface, this matter seemed to be the result of a joint discussion between the royal family and the various sections. But in fact, without the 3rd princess's permission, Song Wan would never take the initiative to suggest this. In other words, they had to go this time. Otherwise, they would very likely offend the 3rd princess. Elder Xia Yi frowned with a grave expression. Why don't we choose a compromise? Let's just pick a few people to go. Now that there are few people in our Chongshu Pavilion, it should be reasonable for a few fewer people to go. Yu Chi-song nodded. It's not impossible. However, it's a little troublesome as to who to send. Among the disciples of the Chongshu Pavilion, not many would be willing to go. He also found it difficult to choose. Master, let me go. A clear voice came from outside the door. The 2 of them raised their heads at the same time and saw Chu Luiyue, dressed in red, walking in through the snow outside the door. Lu Yu, you're back? Yu Chi-song was the first to speak. He looked at Chu Luiyue up and down, and a hint of shock flashed in his eyes. You broke through to a rank 5 warrior? He had only left for 2 days. How did this girl break through again? Chu Luiyue blinked. I learned a lot at the Great Sect meeting and successfully broke through. Yu Chi-song and Elder Xia Yi were speechless for a long time. Such talent, such speed of breakthrough. What else could they say? After a while, Yu Chi-song cleared his throat and asked, Did the 3rd princess make things difficult for you? Chu Luiyue smiled and shook her head. No, she didn't. The 3rd princess asked me to go over and chat for a while. I was supposed to come back yesterday, but the snow was too heavy, so I stayed in the house. Yu Chi-song heaved a sigh of relief after making sure that she was safe and sound. He didn't have a good impression of Shangguan Wan. He always felt that she was narrow-minded and narrow-minded. Not only did she take over the power of Shangguan Yu, but she was also engaged to Jiang Yuqing and had even set the date of the wedding. This made him even more disgusted. If Shangguan Wan and Shangguan Wan were really close, why would she be with her ex-fiancé? Yu Chi-song didn't say anything and rarely got involved in the affairs of the royal family in the past 2 years. However, he still held a grudge against Shangguan Wan and Jiang Yuqing. That's good. Yu Chi-song nodded and asked again. You said that you want to go to Da Huang Swamp? Chu Luiyue nodded seriously. Yes. Have you thought it through? Although there may be countless treasures hidden there, it is also extremely dangerous. It was really hard to predict what would happen during this trip. Lu Yu, your talent is top-notch and you have been improving rapidly. You don't have to go at all. Have you thought it through? Yu Chi-song had seen how Chu Luiyue dealt with the messed yuan gravel, so he knew that she had an unusual trump card. In his opinion, no matter where Chu Luiyue cultivated, she would be able to break through smoothly and become a top-notch expert. It was really unnecessary to go to Da Huang Swamp. Chu Luiyue smiled. I've made up my mind. There's no need to persuade me, Master. The Chongshu Pavilion can't be left unattended. I'm the most suitable person to go. She was Yu Chi-song's disciple and the champion of the Wanzheng competition. She was powerful enough. If the Chongshu Pavilion only sent a few people, she was undoubtedly the most suitable person. Also, I have the ability to protect myself. I'll be careful. You don't have to worry, Master. Yu Chi-song and Elder Xia exchanged a look. Chu Luiyue did seem to want to go. Moreover, she had a good reason. Yu Chi-song hesitated for a long time before he finally agreed. All right, since you want to go, I won't stop you. Just remember one thing, safety first. If you encounter any danger, don't try to be brave. If necessary, remember to call for help. He was talking about the whistle. Chu Luiyue felt a warmth in her heart. I understand. Don't worry, Master. I'll go too. As soon as Chu Luiyue finished speaking, a familiar voice came from outside the door. She looked back. Chang Wanzhou was standing outside the door. The boy's beautiful and delicate face was expressionless. His soft, short blonde hair hung down, with a few strands covering his eyes. However, The determination and stubbornness in his eyes were incomparably clear. Chu Luiyue smiled. She had already guessed it, so she wasn't surprised. She turned to look at Yuchi Song and Elder Shi. Little Zhou is not weak. It's not a bad idea for him to go with me. What do you think? Elder Shui laughed. Since you're going, the boy will naturally go with you. Even if we don't agree, he'll definitely sneak in. In that case, can we still say no? Chang Wanzhou was practically Chu Luiyue's pendant. He would go wherever she went. Moreover, he was unsociable and unruly, but he listened to every word Chu Luiyue said. It was actually not a bad idea for him to go with Chu Luiyue. After all, he was also very strong. Yuchi Song chuckled helplessly. Since that's the case, then both of you can go. Pavilion Master, can I go with you? Another little head poked out from behind Chang Wanzhou. A round little face appeared in front of them. It was none other than Yi Ranran. Elder Shui was a little surprised. Ranran, why do you want to go with us? Yi Ranran was still young. In his opinion, he was still a child. She had always been obedient. He didn't expect her to want to go to such a dangerous place like Dehuang Swamp. Yi Ranran said somewhat embarrassedly. I heard that there are many precious medicinal herbs in Dehuang Swamp. I want to go and have a look. She really wanted to go there. Disregarding everything else, Yi Ranran had always been extremely passionate and persistent when it came to alchemy. It was understandable that she was tempted by Dehuang Swamp. But that place was really dangerous. Elder Shui frowned and didn't say anything for a long time. Yi Ranran looked eagerly at Chu Luiyue. The corners of Chu Luiyue's mouth lifted slightly. She looked at Yuchi Song and Elder Shui. Let her go. Mobile users, please browse the Love Network for a better reading experience. Chapter 678. Ranran is very talented in alchemy, and she'll definitely benefit a lot from this trip. With me and Xiao Zhou here, we will definitely ensure her safety. Chu Luiyue said seriously. Yi Ranran quickly raised his hand. Pavilion Master, I'll cultivate hard and be careful. I won't be a burden to Lu Yu and Wanzhou. She wanted to go to Dehuang Swamp, but she wouldn't let herself be a burden to everyone. In that case, she might as well not go. Seeing that the two elders were still hesitating, Chu Luiyue added. With Ranran around, the three of us can take care of each other. Yuchi Song looked at Elder Shui. She's your disciple. You decide. Elder Shui pondered for a long time before he finally agreed. Alright. But Ranran, you have to do what you said just now. Yi Ranran's combat strength was indeed not as good as Chu Luiyue and Chang Wanzhou's. Her only advantage was probably her talent as a celestial physician. It would be good if she could really gain some experience on this trip. He just hoped that she wouldn't cause trouble to Chu Luiyue and Chang Wanzhou. Yi Ranran's face was filled with joy. Thank you, Master. Thank you, Pavilion Master. Elder Shui laughed. You should be thanking Lu Yu. We don't have much time left. You'd better prepare yourselves in the next 2 days. They nodded in agreement. Chu Luiyue rose to his feet and left with Chang Wanzhou and Yi Ranran to discuss the departure. After they left, Elder Shui looked at Yuchi Song with a much more serious expression. Pavilion Master, have you heard about what happened in the Jianghu mansion in Xiling City in the past 2 days? Yuchi Song asked. You mean the assassination attempt on Jiang Yuqing? Elder Shui nodded, then shook his head. Jiang Yuqing has offended a lot of people. It's normal for someone to attack him. It was rumored that Jiang Yuqing had gathered his former subordinates, and that person had mixed in and almost succeeded. Pavilion Master, do you know that the people he called to the Jiang mansion that day were actually the people who followed him to the southern border? Yuchi Song nodded. I know. Speaking of which, he did it for me to see. To be precise, it's for the Chongshu Pavilion. Elder Shui's eyes widened. You mean, I went to look for him earlier and told him about the Chaos Yuan gravel. He tried his best to clear his name and said that he would help investigate the matter. For this reason, he gathered all those people together. He seems to have kept a low profile, but in fact, if someone investigated, they would have found out. So that's how it is. In this way, no one will be alarmed, and he will show that he wants to help you find out the truth. This Jiang Yuqing is really thoughtful. He's always been like this. He's never been at a disadvantage. Yu Qisong's tone was indifferent, but there was a hint of sarcasm in his eyes. However, the fact that someone tried to assassinate him should be an accident. He probably didn't expect that he would be ambushed in his own home. Elder Shui asked curiously, "Didn't you say that the assassin failed to hurt him?" Yu Qisong sneered. If that person didn't succeed, would Jiang Yuqing be so exasperated that he sent people to search Xiling City overnight? In the past 2 days, he had almost turned the entire city upside down. If he hadn't suffered a loss, he wouldn't have done this at this time. After all, he had just set the date of his wedding with the third princess. It was really inappropriate for him to do this. "You're right." Elder Shui chuckled. "I just don't know who did it. Someone who could take advantage of Jiang Yuqing's subordinates must not be an ordinary person. I'm really curious about Jiang Yuqing's injuries." Yu Qisong's eyes flickered with a hint of coldness. He brought this upon himself. Chu Luiwei returned to her room and cultivated in peace. After breaking through to the 5th stage, she clearly felt that her 5 senses were much more sensitive than before. After unlocking the 5 treasures, her cultivation speed was also much faster than before. This made Chu Luiwei feel much more at ease. After all, one's strength was what gave them confidence. After circulating the force in her body for 1 cycle, Chu Luiwei's entire person became energized. She was even looking forward to the trip to Dahuang Swamp. At this thought, she carefully checked the things that 36 respected Elder Ming and Rong Xiu had given her. With just a glance, he really found quite a few good things. In any case, they were more than enough to save her life if she encountered any danger. Chu Luiwei took out a bronze disc. "This thing seems to be able to teleport?" Chu Luiwei didn't think much of it at the time, but now that she took it out, she remembered that it was actually very valuable. More importantly, it was priceless. Even if you had the money, you might not be able to buy it. According to its level, the distance it could teleport was also different. Chu Luiwei looked at the bronze disc in her hand. It was only the size of a palm and was heavy when she picked it up. There were already rust spots on it. It was obvious that it had not been used for a long time. "I wonder how far this thing can teleport," Chu Luiwei was curious. She wiped off the dust on it and injected a trace of origin power. The bronze disc did not move at all. Chu Luiwei was a little puzzled. As long as it was an origin tool, there would be some movement when origin power was injected. However, this thing did not even have the slightest movement. She poured in even more origin power. This time, she used 50% of her strength. The bronze disc still did not change at all. Chu Luiwei was originally just curious, but now her fighting spirit was stimulated. She didn't believe that she couldn't even open a bronze disc like this. Thus, she took a deep breath and injected 100% of her origin power into it. Crack! A crisp shattering sound was suddenly heard. Chu Luiwei was stunned. She wouldn't break it, would she? This was given to me by someone. If I broke it just like that? Chu Luiwei quickly stopped and put the thing in front of her eyes to take a closer look. There was an extremely small crack in the middle of the bronze disc. "It's really broken." Chu Luiwei felt a headache coming on. Just as she was thinking about how to repair this thing, a bright stream of light suddenly flashed through the gap. It disappeared in an instant. If Chu Luiwei was not staring at it closely, she would not have noticed it. Chu Luiwei frowned and stared at the crack for a while. "This black seems a little off," Chu Luiwei's mind raced. In the end, she chose to continue injecting her origin power into it. The crack became even bigger. The light inside also flashed more frequently. Chu Luiwei continued to inject her origin power into it. After an unknown period of time, a piece of bronze suddenly shattered and fell. Something inside suddenly protruded. Chu Luiwei took a closer look and was stunned. This is actually a petal? Of course, this petal was not real. It was carved out of a transparent crystal. Although it was transparent, at first glance, it was overflowing with light and color. It was extremely magnificent. The entire bronze disc was filled with cracks. It was as if a layer of bronze skin was protruding. Chu Luiyue injected another strand of origin power. Bang. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 679. The layer of bronze on top fell off in an instant. A few petals rose up one after another. Chu Luiyue widened her eyes slightly and looked at a blooming transparent crystal peach blossom. The petals were oval with needles on the edge and a few stamens in the middle. It was indeed a peach blossom. After shaking off all the bronze on the surface, all that was left was a crystal peach blossom that was cold to the touch, clear and beautiful. Chu Luiyue did not know whether to laugh or cry. So this is what this seemingly rough bronze disc looks like inside? I wonder how 36 respected Elder Ming kept it. It's actually placed like this? Chu Luiyue played with the thing in her hand. It could teleport, but how was this thing used? Suddenly, the petals closed slightly. A subtle touch was felt. In the next moment, Chu Luiyue seemed to have injected a stream of force into it subconsciously. The stamen swayed gently and cut her slender fingers. The dark red blood instantly seeped into the transparent crystal and quickly dyed it pink. Chu Luiyue did the whole process smoothly. Seeing this scene, she did not have any fear in her heart. She just continued to stare at it. Then, a stream of light flashed and the crystal peach blossom disappeared instantly. Chu Luiyue felt a pain in her wrist. She looked down and saw a pink peach blossom mark on the inner side of her left wrist. The imprint was only the size of a fingernail, and it was a light pink color. It was vivid and lifelike on the side of her fair and delicate wrist. He recognized me as its master? Chu Luiyue felt a little strange. She did not know what this thing was, but it had inexplicably turned into a peach blossom mark on her wrist. With a thought, she let the force in her body surge toward the peach blossom mark. A white light flashed. A sense of emptiness came. Chu Luiyue's figure disappeared on the spot. Darkness flashed in front of her eyes and her body fell down as if it was being dragged by something. However, this feeling only lasted for a short while. Soon, Chu Luiyue's feet seemed to have stepped on solid ground. The darkness before his eyes gradually dissipated. Chu Luiyue closed his eyes and looked at the scene in front of him. This look almost made her heart jump out of her chest. Because this was her zither room. She loved this place very much in her previous life. Everything inside was arranged according to her preferences. With just one look, she could confirm that this was indeed her zither room. Bookshelf, desk, guqin. Chu Luiyue was shaken to the core when he came to this place and saw everything that he was so familiar with. The blood in his body seemed to have stopped flowing at this moment. In her mind, a rare blank appeared. For a moment, she did not know what to do. After a while, she took a deep breath and gradually calmed down the emotions in her heart. At the same time, a question popped up in his mind. The peach blossom crystal stone could indeed teleport, but how did it bring her here? She had thought of many places before, but she never would have thought that it would be here. Could it be? Was it because she subconsciously wanted to come here? It's good that you're here. The voice of the legendary three-eyed eagle suddenly rang out. The purple gold Bodhi leaf is right here. Chu Luiyue was taken aback. Really? Are you sure? She knew the entire space of this zither room very well. She didn't remember putting the purple gold Bodhi leaf here. But the legendary three-eyed eagle was very sure. Yes. And fortunately, because you have a contract with me, your body is tainted with the aura of the legendary three-eyed eagle clan. The purple gold Bodhi leaf is not alert at this time, so it's a good time to take it away. Chu Luiyue looked around. Then, where is that thing? Since she was already here, of course she had to seize the opportunity. If she followed the normal procedure, she didn't know when she would be able to enter this place. Now that she was here, Chu Luiyue couldn't care less about her sadness. Her mind was full of thoughts of finding the purple gold Bodhi leaf. It's in that guqin. The legendary three-eyed eagle quickly said. Chu Luiyue was stunned. What? Really, she would never have thought that the legendary purple gold Bodhi leaf was hidden in her phoenix-tailed guqin? You mean, That thing is hidden under the guqin, right? Chu Luiyue said uncertainly, her voice inexplicably weak. No, it's in that guqin. The corners of Chu Luiyue's eyes twitched fiercely. Do I have to split this guqin open and take the purple gold Bodhi leaf? One must know that this was an extremely precious guqin that she had always cherished. She really couldn't bear to destroy it now. Moreover, although this guqin looked delicate, it was actually made of extremely hard wood. With her current strength, it would take her a lot of effort to split it open. Most importantly, Jiang Yuqing had guarded this place very tightly. If she really caused a commotion, it would probably cause a lot of trouble. The legendary three-eyed eagle said, "There's no need for that. The purple gold Bodhi leaf is sentient. It must have chosen to stay here because it likes it. We just have to lure it out." Chu Luiyue inwardly heaved a sigh of relief. Then how do we lure it out? The purple gold Bodhi is the divine tree of the legendary three-eyed eagle clan. There is an indescribable attraction between our clan and it. Therefore I can do it myself. That's even better. Chu Luiyue nodded in agreement while thinking to herself that this purple gold Bodhi was indeed a divine tree. Even a single leaf was so difficult to deal with. A black phantom slowly appeared in front of Chu Luiyue. In order not to attract attention, it was much smaller than usual, about the size of an ordinary eagle. When it spread its wings, it was just as long as the guqin. The legendary three-eyed eagle hovered in the air, looking down at the guqin from above. A heavy and majestic aura gradually emanated from its body, enveloping the guqin. Something seemed to flash on the body of the guqin. But Chu Luiyue didn't see it clearly. Then, the third eye of the legendary three-eyed eagle suddenly opened. At the same time, a strange fluctuation suddenly appeared on the body of the guqin. It was as if something was running across it. Chu Luiyue's mind stirred, and he looked carefully. He saw that the fluctuation was rolling back and forth, like a small wave. Something seemed to want to run out, but because the entire guqin had been sealed by the legendary three-eyed eagle's aura, it could only run back and forth like this. Gradually, the fluctuation became smaller. That thing finally revealed its true appearance. A purple gold leaf. It floated back and forth on the guqin, shining all over. Chu Luiyue exclaimed in his heart, "So this is the legendary purple gold Bodhi leaf." It looked like a leaf, but in fact, it was more like an intelligent spirit. The third eye of the legendary three-eyed eagle stared at the purple gold Bodhi leaf and was about to put it away. A series of footsteps suddenly came from outside the door. "Greetings, eldest young master." Chu Luiyue was shocked. Why did Jiang Yuqing suddenly come? Digression, 6 o'clock. Tomorrow, we will resume 5 chapters together, mobile users. Please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 680. Jiang Yuqing's voice sounded faintly. "I'm just here to take a look as usual. All of you can leave." From the sound of it, it seemed that the guard in charge of guarding had left. Jiang Yuqing took out the key and opened the door. Creak! Jiang Yuqing walked into the room and turned around to close the door. The zither room was as quiet as ever. He looked around. Everything was still the same as before. It was as if nothing had happened. Jiang Yuqing's gaze finally fell on the zither. The broken string had not been repaired yet. Scene after scene replayed in his mind, as if it had happened yesterday. It was incomparably vivid. Jiang Yuqing's expression gradually turned cold. He retracted his gaze, walked to the table at the side, and sat down. Then he closed his eyes and let out a long breath. He didn't sleep well last night and had nightmares. It was different from the pain of being burned in a sea of fire. This time, the weather in the dream was good and a gentle breeze blew. It was originally very good. Except for the words that person said. She said that she had someone she liked. In the dream, Jiang Yuqing heard himself asking over and over again who that person was. He also heard himself repeating that this engagement could not be called off. Actually, at that time, he and Shangguan Yu hadn't been engaged yet. Both sides only had this intention, but nothing had been done yet. Sooner or later, the princess would ascend the throne, and sooner or later, she would need an engagement. In the entire Tianling dynasty, countless young talents admired her. But in the end, she chose him. Perhaps it was because of his father's identity, or perhaps it was because he was outstanding in all aspects. The world said that he and the princess were in love with each other, but he knew that wasn't the case. That person, born to be noble, perfect and flawless. Except she didn't love him. It seemed that the princess treated him very well, but in reality she treated everyone very well. Therefore, in Jiang Yuqing's opinion, there was nothing special about it. This even made him feel a little disgusted. But no matter what he did, there seemed to be an invisible barrier around her. It could not be seen or touched, but it truly existed. He thought that no one would be able to get close to her or touch her, so he comforted himself that if he were to marry her, he would be closer to her than others. This wasn't bad either. It was not until that day that he realized he was wrong. In this world, there was someone who could easily enter her heart. And that person wasn't him. In the dream, he was constantly suspicious and questioning, and his attitude was intense. But in reality, that was not what he had done on that day. He was only surprised for a moment before he calmly asked who that person was. However, even now, he still had no idea who that person was. At the end of the day, he only smiled and said, "All right." However, in the end, they still entered into a marriage contract. Jiang Yuqing rubbed his eyebrows and glanced at the Guqin. Suddenly, his eyes narrowed. Soon after, he quickly got up and walked to the side of the zither. At first glance, the zither didn't seem to have changed. But Jiang Yuqing stared intently at a certain spot on the zither. When did a purple gold color appear here? He would come to take a look at this zither almost every once in a while. Almost no one was more familiar with it than him. He remembered clearly that such a mark had never appeared on it before. In fact, it wasn't there the last time he came. He stretched out his hand and reached for the zither. Suddenly, a cold wind came from behind. Alarm bells rang in his heart and he immediately turned around. A huge black phantom pounced over. It directly knocked him to the side. Before he could see the other party's appearance clearly, he was already thrown to the ground. At the same time, a black figure suddenly appeared behind the cabinet on the other side. Jiang Yuqing's eyes suddenly widened. He actually didn't notice that there was someone in this room just now. He saw that black figure directly hugging the zither in his arms. Jiang Yuqing said angrily, "How dare you?" He held his breath, flipped over, and pulled out his saber. Then he slashed straight at that person. The saber slashed down. That person's figure actually disappeared on the spot in an instant. Jiang Yuqing's saber missed. He was shocked and subconsciously looked back. However, he only saw a huge wing sweep past his eyes. Then, it also disappeared in an instant. Everything happened in an instant. By the time Jiang Yuqing reacted, there was no one else in the room other than him. The blood in his chest was surging. When the huge black figure pounced on him just now, it gave him a heavy blow. But how could he care about that at this moment? The zither had been stolen. Right in front of his eyes. Jiang Yuqing couldn't believe it. "Guards! Guards!" He shouted angrily. The guards outside heard the sound and hurriedly rushed over. "Eldest young master! What's wrong? What's wrong? Tell me what's wrong." Jiang Yuqing swallowed the blood in his mouth. Because of his anger, his face was flushed red, and his veins were bulging. His facial features looked a little ferocious. "I told you to guard this zither room well. What did you do? How could you let someone sneak in without a sound? What's the use of having you?" When the guards saw this, they were all shocked and immediately knelt down. "Eldest young master, we've been guarding here all this time. We've never let anyone in." Jiang Yuqing recalled the scene of that person disappearing just now. It didn't seem to cause any fluctuations in the void. Instead, it disappeared in an instant. This kind of situation. It didn't seem to be an ordinary method. "Are you sure that you've been guarding outside the door all this time?" "No one came in, and you didn't notice any movements?" Jiang Yuqing asked sternly. The guards trembled with fear. What this subordinate said is true. Looking at the shocked and terrified expressions on the guards' faces, Jiang Yuqing also believed them a little. But, in this way, it would undoubtedly be more difficult to find out who that person was. And those huge black wings. He didn't seem to have seen such a magical beast before. You guys go down first. Don't say a word about what happened today, Jiang Yuqing said with an ugly expression. The guards looked at each other. Eldest young master was so angry. Was he going to let them go just like that? Jiang Yuqing glanced at them. What don't you understand? This subordinate will remember. After saying that, the guards hurriedly left. After they left, Jiang Yuqing looked at the place where the zither was placed. There was nothing on it. Everyone knew that the zither room in Thousand View Garden was one of the Empress concubine's favorite places when she was alive. If the news of the zither being stolen spread, someone would definitely use this matter to make a fuss. At that time, he, who had been in charge of guarding this zither room, would definitely become the target of public criticism. Therefore, he had to investigate this matter himself. Thinking of this, he glanced in the direction where the guards left, and a hint of killing intent flashed in his eyes. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 681. When Chu Luiyue opened her eyes again, she had already returned to her room in the Chongshu Pavilion. After confirming that she had returned safely, Chu Luiyue let out a long sigh of relief. That was close. She was almost discovered by Jiang Yuqing just now. If she was a step later, who would have thought that Jiang Yuqing would suddenly go to the zither room at this time? She took off her black robe and asked the legendary three-eyed eagle, "What's the matter?" "He didn't see you just now, did he?" "No." The voice of the legendary three-eyed eagle was as calm and indifferent as ever, with a trace of contempt. "He's just strong in appearance." Jiang Yuqing's reaction was simply terrible compared to a normal warrior of the same level. There must be something wrong with his body. Although the legendary three-eyed eagle didn't have a physical body now, it was still a divine beast after all. Moreover, after contracting with Chu Luiyue, its strength had been recovering. Although it was slow, its aura was indeed strengthening. It wouldn't be a problem to deal with Jiang Yuqing. Chu Luiyue was relieved when she heard this. After listening to the analysis of the legendary three-eyed eagle, she couldn't help but sneer. I've also sensed it. His strength is indeed much weaker than before. It seems that the matter of the Chaos Yuan gravel was indeed done by him. Although I don't know what method he used to make it seem that his realm hasn't changed at all, his strength has clearly regressed. In addition to the bloody hole that she had sent out earlier, the current Jiang Yuqing's body was probably in a mess. However, this thing is really useful. After such a long journey back and forth, the force in my body only consumed a little. As Chu Luiyue spoke, she looked at the peach blossom mark on the inner side of her left wrist. The peach blossoms were shining and blooming gently. Although she didn't know how this thing suddenly brought her to the zither room, being able to return safely and smoothly was enough to prove its ability. This thing was indeed much more useful than she had expected. The next time I see 36th Elder Ming, I have to thank him properly. After saying that, Chu Luiyue once again confirmed that the doors and windows were locked and that no one would disturb her. Only then did she take out the zither from her universe ring and carefully placed it in front of her. She was about to subdue the purple gold Bodhi leaf just now, but Jiang Yuqing came and had to stop. Looking at the zither, Chu Luiyue's feelings were complicated. She really didn't expect that she would bring it back so inexplicably. Jiang Yuqing didn't dare to make this matter public, so she wasn't worried that he would investigate it openly. After thinking for a while, Chu Luiyue collected her thoughts and prepared to find the purplish gold Buddha leaf again. He looked up, down, left, and right, and finally saw a purple gold color in the corner. It was as if someone had used a brush to lightly draw a line on it, and it was brilliant. That wisp of purple gold light swayed slightly, as if it was restless and wanted to escape. However, it was because she was Jiang. She had escaped. Yes, this was a seal that the legendary three-eyed eagle had hurriedly placed on him. Chu Luiyue focused her eyes. Let's begin. Crush. The legendary three-eyed eagle appeared again. The huge black figure was suspended in midair. A powerful pressure filled the entire room. The third eye of the legendary three-eyed eagle suddenly opened. The layer of black on the zither quickly dissipated. A purple gold leaf suddenly leaped out from within. A red light shot out of the legendary three-eyed eagle's eye. Bang! The purple gold leaf was instantly wrapped up. It couldn't move. At a glance, the outer layer was oval in color. It was clear and translucent, and it looked like a piece of amber. Chu Luiwei reached out and took the item. It was slightly warm to the touch and emitted a faint leaf fragrance. Holding it in her hand, she could clearly feel the aura and power that was full of vitality. The force in Chu Luiwei's body seemed to be attracted by this power and gradually increased its flow speed. This purple gold Bodhi leaf is so powerful? Chu Luiwei was shocked, and her eyes widened slightly. Just this purple gold Bodhi leaf alone contained more energy than almost all the medicinal herbs she had ever seen. This is the leaf of a divine tree. Normal herbs can't be compared to it. There was a hint of pride in the legendary three-eyed eagle's voice. To be worshipped as a divine tree by the legendary three-eyed eagle clan, it was naturally extraordinary. Chu Luiwei looked at the small ball in her hand. So, it's temporarily locked up? That's right. When I find the rest of the items, I can rebuild my body. Even the calm and indifferent legendary three-eyed eagle could not hide its excitement when talking about this. It had been trapped in the heavenly square cauldron for 1,000 years. It had thought that it would be tortured and destroyed by the karmic fire, but it had not expected that it would be reborn one day. Logically speaking, it was impossible for the purple gold Bodhi leaf to appear in a place like the Tianling dynasty. However, it had appeared. If this was not fate, then what was it? Chu Luiwei was also very happy that the legendary three-eyed eagle was one step closer to restoring its body. However, she also had a question in her heart. How did this purple gold Bodhi leaf appear in this guqin? She had not told the legendary three-eyed eagle her true identity. Therefore, it did not know that this guqin was originally hers. She had played this guqin for more than 10 years, but she did not know that there was a purple gold Bodhi leaf hidden in it. Could it be that it was hidden so well that even she did not notice it? After all, if not for the legendary three-eyed eagle's reminder, she would not have known about it. This purple gold Bodhi leaf should have been in this guqin for several years. As for who put it there, I don't know. Chu Luiwei was a little surprised. You're saying that someone deliberately put it in there? Of course. There are only 2 purple gold Bodhi trees in the world. One is in my clan, and the other is in the Far East. And that place is more than 10,000 miles away from here. It is impossible for such a small purple gold Bodhi leaf to arrive here alone. Therefore, someone must have deliberately brought it here. Chu Luiwei frowned slightly. A few years, why did she not know that there was an extra purple gold Bodhi leaf in here? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 682. After thinking for a while, Chu Luiwei still could not come up with an answer. In the end, she could only put this matter aside for the time being. After carefully putting away the purple gold Bodhi leaf, she once again entered into a state of cultivation. 2 days passed in a hurry. On the morning of the 3rd day, Chu Luiwei had just completed a cycle when she heard Yi Ranran's voice from outside. Lu Yu, we should set off. Chu Luiwei opened her eyes. Her eyes were clear, and there seemed to be light flickering in the depths of her eyes. After unlocking the 5 treasures, not only did her cultivation speed increase by a lot, even the force in her body was purer than before. She clenched her fists and stretched her muscles and bones. She could faintly hear the sound of bones cracking. This long-awaited feeling of being filled with power made Chu Luiwei feel refreshed. She walked over to open the door. Yi Ranran and Chang Wanzhou were already waiting for her. Let's go. After the few of them went down the mountain, they went straight to Pingliang Square. They were going to Dahuang Swamp from there. Shiling City, which had always been bustling, seemed to have become somewhat solemn today. There were even fewer people on the streets. When they arrived at Pingliang Square, they realized that there were even fewer people here. This was because the Black Cavalry had already imposed martial law in advance. In the huge square, several teleportation portals were temporarily closed. Only the one in the center was open. Beside the teleportation portal, there were 1,000 Black Cavalry troops ready to set off. At the front of the Black Cavalry was a young man in black armor. His shoulders and back were straight, and his whole body exuded a strong murderous aura. It was Mu Qinghe. Although he was a general in Xiling City, most of the time, he wore casual clothes. Now that he suddenly put on his armor, the fierce and biting cold aura that he had fought in battles with thousands of people was instantly obvious. It was daunting. Yi Ranran said in a low voice, "Vice Admiral Mu looks different today." As expected of the Lieutenant General of the Black Cavalry. To be able to rise rapidly and reach his current position in a short 10 years, he was indeed capable. Chu Luiyue stared at her for a moment before looking away. His eyes were calm. The current Mu Qinghe no longer had anything to do with her. Yi Ranran glanced at her. Seeing that her reaction was ordinary, she felt a little strange. "Lu Yu, aren't you close to Vice Admiral Mu? Should I go and say hello?" Chu Luiyue smiled. "The third princess and the others will be here soon. Isn't this a little inappropriate?" Yi Ranran thought about it and agreed. After all, there was still 1,000 Black Cavalry behind them. "Then let's go to the side and wait? I think some people from the other sects have already arrived." Chu Luiyue nodded. The three of them walked to the other side. Mu Qinghe raised her eyes slightly, just in time to see Chu Luiyue and the others walking past. Many people turned to look at her. Curiosity, admiration, respect, jealousy, envy, all kinds of gazes fell on her. Compared to the last time they met, Chu Luiyue seemed to have changed. She seemed to be more dazzling than before. This feeling was hard to describe. In short, it was like a piece of raw stone that was gradually polished and gradually released its own brilliance. Or perhaps, she was originally a dusty pearl. Now that the layer of dust had finally been wiped off, she was shining brightly. She was completely different from the restrained and cautious woman he saw in country Yaochen a few months ago. In such a short period of time, Chu Luiyue had already become a famous figure in West Hill. Her reputation was great, and she was unparalleled. Although he was the one who found her, the things that happened after Chu Luiyue came to West Hill had nothing to do with him. Especially after she moved out of the Mu clan, the two of them had almost no contact. Now that they met again, he felt an inexplicable sigh in his heart. However, Mu Qinghe quickly retracted his gaze after taking a glance at her. There were already people from a few sects who had arrived. Chu Luiyue looked over and saw many familiar faces. When they saw the three of them, the people who were chatting with each other immediately fell silent. They had already heard that the Chongshu Pavilion would only send 3 people over. Because of this, the other sects even had an extra slot. They had long been guessing who the Chongshu Pavilion would send. When they saw Chu Luiyue and the other 2, they were more or less shocked. These 3 people were the best seedlings in the Chongshu Pavilion. Not to mention Chu Luiyue and Chang Wanzhou. Even Yi Ranran had displayed extraordinary talent as a celestial physician during the sect competition. No matter what, the Dahuang Swamp was a dangerous place. Was the Chongshu Pavilion really willing to release all 3 of them at once? Weren't they afraid that something would happen? Chu Luiyue turned a blind eye to everyone's gazes. Chang Wanzhou didn't care at all. Anyway, she was following Lu Yu and Wanzhou. What was there to be afraid of? Hence, the 3 of them calmly found a place to stand at the side. Then, some people greeted them. Chu Luiyue and the others also responded to each other. It seems that the Chongshu Pavilion is quite confident in you guys this time. They actually let you guys come together? A shrill voice was heard. Chu Luiyue looked up lazily. Ning Jiao Jiao. Chu Luiyue smiled and slowly said, "That's right. Young Miss Ning, are you worried about our safety? With so many people around, I don't think anything will happen. What do you think?" Ning Jiao Jiao snorted. "It's better to be safe than sorry. I'm just saying that casually." I don't mean anything else. Compared to before, her attitude towards Chu Luiwei had changed quite a bit. This was a world where strength was respected after all. Chu Luiwei first took first place in the Wanzheng competition and then won 3 rounds in a row at the sect competition. Ning Jiaojiao was present at that time. Even if she was full of dissatisfaction, she had to admit that Chu Luiwei's strength was indeed not to be underestimated. Before coming out this time, her father, Ning Binghai, specially instructed her not to cause trouble. Ning Jiaojiao had suffered before, so she naturally didn't dare to be too presumptuous now. She was just talking nonsense. Of course, no one knew what she was thinking. Chu Luiwei saw that she had retreated in the face of difficulties, so he didn't care too much. The corners of his lips curled up and he didn't say anything. Only then did Ning Jiaojiao secretly heave a sigh of relief. Suddenly, her gaze focused and she couldn't help but ask, "You broke through to a stage 5 warrior?" Chu Luiwei glanced at her indifferently. Wasn't it obvious? Only then did Ning Jiaojiao realize that she had lost her composure. She bit her lip and looked away. However, she was still a little shocked in her heart. How long had Chu Luiwei been in Xiling? She actually broke through from a stage 3 warrior to a stage 5 warrior? Didn't that mean that she was even stronger? Not only Ning Jiaojiao, but the people standing at the side were also somewhat shocked. What's there to be proud of when you're a stage 5 warrior? A cold voice with a hint of mockery came from behind. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.